Hey up everybody, welcome back to the Yorkshire Bike Mechanics YouTube channel. I hope you're all good and you've had a nice weekend. It's Monday this morning, 7:45, bright and early. We've got a busy week, so I thought I'd get a good start. And we've had a busy weekend, so I need to clean up. So while I talk, I'll just put these tools away, and my bench is a proper mess. So I need to make some space before I can do anything at all. So while I do that, I'm just going to update you on parts. SRAM is still so difficult to get hold of. So difficult at the minute, especially Eagle stuff. XG 1275s. Eagle chains are still difficult to get. And we're buying from other bike shops just to try and get some stock in, but some online retailers, you've got to be careful because you think you're buying from England and you're really not. You're buying from abroad, you're buying from Spain and places like that. And what happens is they say, yeah, it's been dispatched, but you don't know it's coming from Spain. And then you'll get like a courier message to say that this is a GLS courier service, and then you know it's Spain, and you end up with a customs and excise charge, which makes it really expensive. Plus the wait, you're waiting for weeks and weeks for stuff. It's absolutely, you think it'd be getting better, but it really isn't. It's getting a little bit worse, I think. Really bad to get anything at the minute. Some 11 speed stuff's difficult to get. XT derailleurs, Eagle derailleurs. Oh, it's a nightmare. Anyway, it is what it is, and there's nothing you can do. So we'll just bash on. So we're getting there now with this. So what we're going to do today, I thought about good shot. I thought we'd carry on with his brake bleeding videos. We've got a really nice pair of E4s in on a Niner full suspension bike. I don't know whether you've heard of Niner, but Niner bikes are kind of they come from Colorado, and the company was started by quite a few enthusiast bikers. I'm not sure whether they still run it now or whether it's actually gone bigger. But they produce a nice bike. This is not a bad bike. I'll show you around it in a second. So we're going to work on that today. It's in for a service and it needs a brake bleed. It's got some Hope E4s on there. So we'll continue that brake bleed series with Hope E4s. And I've got some Maguras to do, some MTs to do. So that'll probably be his next bleeding video. Unless something comes in the workshop that's particularly good and I want to put that on first. So Hopes are fairly straightforward to do. The process is very similar, but we just tweak it and change it slightly because obviously the reservoir at the top, as soon as you take that top cap off, it's open. So we'll cover that off in a second. So let's crack on. So here it is. As Niner, it's an RIP RDO, a 29er, a nice looking bike, and as you can see it's clean and tidy, it's been well looked after, it's in for a service, it's an Eagle 12 speed on there, and it's in really good condition, so we don't need to do anything with that apart from set it up again. So yeah, let's bleed these Hope E4 brakes. And the first thing that we need to do is, let's have a look at the back caliper. Okay, so we're looking at the Hope E4 Black back caliper. And these brakes, these are a lovely brake, but they've got a completely different feel to your Shimano. Your Shimanos are either off or on. These have got quite a lot of feel to the levers. And what I mean by that is, if you're riding along on your bike and you pull your lever on a little bit, then it'll stop slower than what it would if you put more pressure on the lever, and it's a lot more feel. You've got a lot more feel in the lever. Excuse me. But these are a very capable brake, and if you pull your lever on pretty solidly, it will stop, and it'll stop pretty quick. They're a very powerful brake, but a completely different feel to Shimano. You either love them or you don't. I particularly like Hope brakes. One of the reasons why I like Hope brakes is because you can completely service them from the tiniest nut and bolt on the caliper to the hose to the copper washers to the pistons to the seals. All the lever parts are available, and you can completely strip these down and rebuild them, and you end up with like a brand new brake. Whereas the Shimanos, you can't. Shimanos tend to be a non-serviceable brake, and you can't actually do much with them. Whereas these, you can end up with a pair of these for years and years and years, and just keep servicing them, and they'll last you forever. Hope are a particularly great company to work with. They'll look after you from a warranty point of view. They're made in England, bar Knowleswick, and a brilliant brake. Quite a different brake to work on than the Shimano from a bleeding point of view. The Shimano, you can use a syringe on the back, and you've got the cup that you mount on the lever on the front. These are particularly open on the front because they have like a cap, and once you take your cap off you can actually see right into the reservoir, which I'll show you in a second. And we use the syringe for the back. So the process is quite a little bit different from bleeding Shimano brakes. Nevertheless, a nice brake to bleed, but a different process. So we've looked at the back. Let's have a look at the front. So we're at the top end of the bike, and we've got the lever section here, the lever part of the brake. And as you can see, this is a kind of a completely different setup to a Shimano. We've obviously got a top cap there, which these two little Torx bolts unscrew, and that reveals the reservoir inside. And we've got these adjustment screws here, these bite and reach screws here. There's quite a lot of adjustment on this lever. Really nice brake, but they need servicing, like any other Hope brakes really. They need looking after. These are in good condition. They've not been bashed or anything like that, as you can see. So the first thing that we need to do is let's look at the bits and bobs that we need to be able to bleed these brakes. These are the tools that you need to be able to bleed these brakes. You need quite a bit of cloth, a Torx T10, two syringes. These are just Braun inkjet syringes, 20mm, two small pieces of silicone tubing for the end of the syringes, an 8mm spanner. If you've not got a piston retraction tool, then use a standard plastic tyre lever and some clean .4 fluid. Okay, now this is .4 fluid, so it's corrosive, so I'd advise you to wear gloves if you possibly can. So and don't get it on your clothes or your paintwork on your bike. Just get plenty of cloth and some water as well to rinse it off if you accidentally spill it. So these are the bits and bobs that we need to bleed these brakes. So let's crack on, and let's start on his lever end. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to lift this lever up higher on the bar, so it brings the reservoir reasonably level. So we just use this 4mm Allen key, we move it along the bar a bit. Now we can, if you notice that this particular top cap is still on quite a slope, and as soon as we undo these Torx bolts, we're going to start to get some fluid dribbling out of this end. So what I generally do is I use a little bit of a wooden wedge, and I'll show you. If you undo these clamp bolts, so they're nearly dropping out but not all the way, not so they're falling out, both top and bottom, and then the little wedge you push round the back of this clamp, so it brings it off the bar enough so it makes the reservoir leveler than what it was before. Now you're not going to get it exactly level, but it'll be much better and you just nip that up just so it stops it from moving around. Okay, so that's that bit. So the next thing that we need to do is take the top cap off. So we take as Torx T10 and we just undo these bolts slightly. Now you need to be careful when you're undoing these bolts because there might be a little bit of fluid that comes out. I'd advise you to put some gloves on, even though I'm stupid enough not to. So there's a little rubber cap underneath, like a little seal. Okay, and as you can see, that fluid there is sitting. I hope you can see that. I'll try and move the camera a bit. You can see inside that reservoir now, and you can see that fluid is reasonably clear and clean, which is a good sign. Okay, it's full, even though there's a little bit of a gap there, but don't forget the lever is generally on a little bit of an angle. Okay, so that's us lever end done for now. We can leave that as it is, and we need to go back to the back. First things first, let's have the back wheel out. So what we need to do is, this is quite a nice caliper to work with. It's from a bleeding point of view, because the bleed port is way out to the left hand side. So if we get any slight drip or anything from there, then it's not actually going to go on the pads, providing that you're careful. So what we need to do is get your cloth, put a cloth under there just to catch any residue. Take the rubber cap off. Get your syringe. And then bob us this tube on. Okay. Now we'll put a certain amount of fluid in this syringe, .4 fluid. Okay. So we've got about 10 ml of fluid in there. There's a little bit of an air bubble, but we don't need to worry about that. Now I'm just squashing the end of the tube. That makes a little bit of a space where there's no fluid, which is easier to get on this nipple here. So just connect it on there. Okay. So we've got, at the moment, this particular bleed screw is closed off. So we've got a complete closed system at the moment. We've got a reasonable amount of fluid in the top, and we've got a syringe on the bottom, and the system's still closed. So the thing that we need to do next is take us 8 ml and open that. So it's only a quarter of a turn. Okay. That's all we need, a quarter of a turn. So the thing that we need to be careful of now is how much fluid we pull back out of this system, because if you remember, there's only a small amount of fluid in the top. So we need to be careful not to pull all that fluid back, so it creates air coming into the system. So we need to make sure that that reservoir is still topped up. So if you get your other syringe, put your tube on end and suck a little bit of .4 fluid up, about 5 or 10 ml. Just make sure it's clean. Okay, so we've got 2 syringes, one connected to the back, one with fluid in it. Okay, that we need to use this to make sure that the reservoir is still topped up. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll gradually pull some fluid out. So I'm lifting the syringe up, and you can see there's a little bit of air in there, and you can see it's just starting to discolour, but I've only pulled a little bit up. Okay, just a little bit out, and we'll see what difference that makes to the reservoir. Let's go back up to the top. So if you watch that reservoir, if I pull a little bit more from there, you can see it's starting to go down. Can you see that? And if I push some back, it starts to lift up. There you go. So the idea is we keep topping that reservoir up so it doesn't run out of fluid. So I've got my fluid there. Okay. And just gently squeeze some back in, very, very carefully. You can drop it in until it goes back up to the top. So this is the thing that you need to be careful of. You just need to make sure that that reservoir is still got fluid in it. If you've pulled too much from the back and it's empty, then you've pulled air in. I'll show you what I mean. What I'll do is I'll pull some through and pull it all through so air starts to get in, and then you'll see what I mean. You'll see it disappear. Right, so at this point we're pulling air through, which is completely opposite of what we're trying to achieve. So if I push it back, okay, you can see all them bubbles come back. Okay, and we're back up to the top again. So the objective is exactly the same as what we would do on any other brake, is to get any air out of the system into the syringe. Now we can't do that from the top because we don't have a syringe attached, but we can actually push it back through the hose into the reservoir, and you've seen how bubbles actually come back out once we've actually pulled a little bit more fluid out than what we should. So you're after a system that's got no air in it at all, and when you push the fluid through, there's no bubbles come out, and when you pull the syringe back out from the back, when you lift the syringe up, there's no air coming out into the syringe. And you use the second syringe to just keep that reservoir topped up. Okay, so let's assume now that we've actually got any air out of the system by pushing and pulling it back into the reservoir. What we need to do now is we need to actually double check that and bleed the caliper itself. So let's move back down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually lock this off like that, and I'm going to pull the lever back to the bar, and I'm going to put a tie wrap round the lever so it stays back to the bar. I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so we've got a tie wrap on his lever and it's pulled back to the bar. So that means there's no air can come back out this way, or fluid, and there's no fluid or air can go the other way because it's completely locked off because the lever's closed. The pistons inside is actually as far down the system as it'll go. It doesn't allow any air to come in and out. So let's go back down the other end. So what we need to do now is, now that we've got us lever locked off, we need to bleed this caliper. And now that means if there's any air that's trapped behind these four pistons, we can pull it back out from behind the pistons back into the syringe. Now the way we do that basically is unlock this off again. If we unlock it, okay, and we take us piston retraction tool and we force these pistons back into the housing, which will in turn force the pistons back. That's it. And as you can see, as I'm pushing these pistons back, there's no air coming out. The pistons are actually fully back in the housing, just about, and there's no air coming out. So we know that there's no air in the back of the pistons either. So we have a fully bled, no air system, which is exactly what we want. Now that we've done that, it's important at this point that when the pistons are fully back, we lock this off. Now what we can do is we can take this syringe off. So if we pull it back and then take it off, you'll find that there's nothing that'll come out because we've got negative pressure. on that syringe. Put that to one side. Give that a little wipe. Just make sure it's actually tight but not too tight. You'll be able to feel it. You don't want to over tighten that. So that's the caliper done. Let's move back up to the front. Whoop. There goes my piston retraction tool. So as you can see, we've still got us tie wrap on there. We've still got the lever fully pressed in. So let's undo that now. And we've still got fluid in as reservoir. So we don't need to worry about that. We know that when we take this tie wrap off, this lever's going to go back and the fluid's going to go down. But there's still loads, so we don't need to worry about it too much. Okay, so what we can do now is we need to put the top cap back on the reservoir. So we'll just top it up. Okay, don't need a lot. Just so it's just brimming on there. That's it. Don't matter if you get a tiny bit coming out. Okay, so now that we've got to that stage, we need to take the rubber cap that you can see there. Okay, and we need to fold it down. So if we put the front bit on first and we fold it in, now what that's done basically is, because there's like some rubber fins under there, all the fluid that were collected at that end is now forced up to the back. So that is now a full reservoir. And on the top cap you can see there's a really tiny hole. Don't know whether you can see that, which is the breather hole. Which enables air to go in the top so the fluid actually can run down the system into the caliper. Plus it allows for any overfill. So we need to be careful how we put this on, because we don't want to distort or trap that particular seal. We'll put us torque cap screws back in. Take us T10 and just slowly tighten those up. No, I'm not fully tightening the right hand one until the left hand one is closed a little bit more, tightened up a bit more. I'm just evenly doing that so we don't distort that rubber underneath. Okay, we can take that wedge out, put the lever back into the right position. Okay, tighten it back up, put the wheel back in. Now what we need to do now is we need to centralise these pistons. So if we press a brake lever until the pads start to bite, first thing that we need to do is make sure this caliper is central on this rotor. If it is, then your wheel will spin freely. And I can see from there that these two pads are coming out exactly the same time as each other. So let me lift the camera over. So as you can see, as I pull this lever, both them pistons, all them four pistons, are coming out exactly the same time as each other, which gives us a brilliant bite on his lever. Okay. Okay, if they weren't, then what we'd do is just use a standard pricker tool just to manoeuvre those about, and pressing the brake lever at the same time just to make sure that all them pistons are coming out at the same time, and that way you get a really good bite. Okay, and that's basically it. It's a fairly simple process. So I hope you found that useful, and you can see how easy it is once you get your tools set up and you get organised. It is a straightforward process. It's very similar to the Shimano process, but obviously you've got a reservoir that's open at one end, and the procedure is very similar. So yeah, if you've got any questions or comments, just leave them in the bottom. If you've not subscribed yet, then please subscribe. I really do appreciate your support. And hopefully the next one will be Magura MT brakes. See you later. Bye. Total Pip.